Hi everyone, Dr. Andi here. It is time for today's Facebook Live. Wednesday is one of my favorite days. I absolutely love sharing and educating and answering all of your questions. So I will give you all a little bit of background on me while I give you guys time to log on and join us today. So I am a naturopathic physician. I've been practicing in Toronto, Canada. Finally a beautiful sunshiny day for us here. We finally started spring. So I've been practicing in Toronto for 10 years now, which sounds like a long time every time I say that. I initially started with the focus more so in sports medicine. I was a dancer, I did martial arts, so I was very much into the sports medicine focus of things. And then slowly as my practice evolved, I started to function and focus more on metabolic nutrition, hormones, hormonal balance, including insulin and cortisol. And so my practice slowly developed more into the metabolic nutrition standpoint. There are about 19 practitioners in our practice here in Toronto, and all of us function from the low-carb keto standpoint as sort of a foundation for all of our protocols. I personally have been keto for over 10 years now. It's something that I've done in my life from very early in my 20s, and actually in my teens is actually when I started. And it's something I've incorporated into my practice with all of my patients. It really is the foundation of our protocols. So it's something I'm very passionate about, so I love answering all of your questions. I am also back from about 5 days speaking with our team in Hong Kong, which was absolutely incredible. We had a really wonderful turnout. We got to speak to our Proven Asia team. Really wonderful event, and I got to talk about keto basics. It's always my favorite to provide education. I got to talk about Mytoplex as well. So I will talk a little bit about that today and give you guys some more background for those of you who have been using Mytoplex. I know some of you have also just come off of the reboot, so congratulations to those of you who just finished. And for those of you who are new, please feel free to share your experience. Would love to hear how your experience was, and would love to hear how the reboot was for you. As most of you know, fasting and intermittent fasting is one of my absolute favorite tools in practice. So maybe I'll start there today. So I'm getting lots of hormone questions already today, so I will absolutely talk about hormones, given that that's one of my favorite topics. So lots of hormone questions coming already. So I'll talk a little bit about fasting. That's one of my absolute favorite tools. Intermittent fasting is something that I introduce for all of my patients when I have them move towards a ketogenic diet, and especially for those who can't follow a ketogenic diet and I have them taking exogenous ketones, just having them engage in the intermittent fasting, and I have them do that about 4 or 5 times a week, and then I have them do a more extended fast, 24 hours once a week, and then I have them do a reboot once a month. So that's how I incorporate fasting into my practice. All right, I am going to get to your questions now. The questions are coming fast and furious here, so let me start answering for you. So I'm going to answer the weight loss question first. We get that question a lot during the lives, and so I'm going to talk about weight loss a little bit. So the question was, what is the expected weight loss when you start taking exogenous ketones? So it's a great question, because exogenous ketones are not a weight loss supplement. That's not what they are. That's not what they were designed for. But most people gravitate towards the ketogenic diet and exogenous ketones because of the fat loss component. So essentially what is happening, the benefits of ketones in terms of improving blood sugar levels, improving our insulin levels, impacting our leptin and ghrelin, which are the hormones that tell us that we are full, and the hormones that tell us that we're hungry. So it actually impacts our hunger cues and our satiety cues. And as a direct result of that, we see weight loss. It's sort of the secondary benefit. So when it comes to how much weight can you expect to lose, that's different for absolutely everybody. You can never give anybody an exact number of how much weight you'll lose with any given plan or diet if that's what they're doing. And with exogenous ketones, I always like to remind people that it depends on where you're coming from. So you'll hear people say, that so-and-so lost 20 pounds in the first month. I didn't have that experience. Why not? And so you have to take a look at what it is that's happening in your body, and you have to determine what it is that is happening in your system that might be impeding you from experiencing your weight loss goals. So yes, we do see fat loss, changes in appetite, changes in hunger and food cravings. But when it comes to the actual amount of fat that you lose, you also have to make sure things like your hormones are balanced. You have to make sure that you're looking at things like your thyroid, inflammation, gut health. All of those things will play a role in your body's ability to lose weight or to lose fat. So you have to make sure that those other things are balanced. We often see that as well when people say they've hit a plateau. When they hit a plateau, that's always where I ask them to really engage in intermittent fasting or a reboot. I find that that's one of the best ways to get over a plateau. That really is one of the most effective ways to get over your plateau. But essentially you've got to look at those other things that might be contributing to or stopping you from achieving the weight loss that you're looking for. All right, lots of hormone questions today. We've got thyroid, we've got menopause, we've got PCOS. Okay, so let's try and tackle some of those because those keep coming in. All right, so let's talk about hormones. That's one of my absolute favorite topics. I treat hormone imbalance daily. I'm working with men and women when it comes to managing hormones. And with PCOS, I'll start with PCOS first, then I'll move into menopause. With PCOS, what we're seeing and what the research is showing is we know that individuals with PCOS are insulin resistant. They often have elevated male sex hormones. They're often not ovulating, irregular cycles. And the studies are showing that beta-hydroxybutyrate can actually encourage ovulation, and that was in animal studies, in regulating cycles as well. And we also know that BHB can help to balance, and it can help balance those insulin levels and improve insulin sensitivity. But what we also see is that individuals with PCOS who have high testosterone, it can bring those testosterone levels down. The interesting thing about that, though, is if you have normal testosterone in men and in women, it's not going to cause you to deplete your testosterone stores. So that's specifically in individuals suffering from PCOS. And then when it comes to menopause, this is also quite similar. So in menopause, right off the bat, women are becoming insulin resistant and they're also having elevated cortisol levels. So that drop in those hormones, so our ovaries stop producing hormones, our adrenal glands have to take over the production of hormones in the body. So beta-hydroxybutyrate, we know, can improve insulin sensitivity. That's one of the things that contributes to weight gain, as we know, because insulin causes fat storage right around the middle, which is one of the primary complaints I get from my women in menopause. And the other thing also is cortisol. So again, those adrenal glands, which sit on the top of our kidneys in the back, they manage stress and cortisol, and they also now have to take on the role of hormone production. And what we found is that beta-hydroxybutyrate can also impact our nervous system and take us out of fight and flight sympathetic nervous system into parasympathetic, a more calm nervous system, which could potentially impact our cortisol release. And again, cortisol is a storage hormone and causes fat storage right around the middle. So there could be benefit in that way for menopausal women as well. And then I often feel that it's the adrenals that are struggling that can also contribute to some of the hot flashes that women experience in menopause. So there could be some benefit in menopause as well. And then thyroid, I often get concerns about thyroid hormone. Is following a ketogenic diet or taking beta-hydroxybutyrate or therapeutic ketones, is that going to throw off my thyroid? Is it going to impact my thyroid hormone? And the answer to that is no. We don't have any evidence that beta-hydroxybutyrate will throw off your thyroid hormone. What I do see, however, for those following a ketogenic diet, is that often those who don't do it properly, the ones who don't do it properly, those are the ones that I will see imbalance in hormones. So they're not following a high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb diet. When you do that, your hormones should remain perfectly balanced, but it's the one who are low-fat, low-carb. They're not getting those fats that they need in order to make hormones. Those are the individuals, and they're eating chicken and lettuce all day long. And those are the individuals that I see who have hormonal imbalances. And I just saw a question about autoimmune conditions, so I was just about to talk about thyroid autoimmunity as well. So Hashimoto's is another question I get. Will it negatively impact Hashimoto's? So I'm just going to loop this all into autoimmune in general. And so so the question is there benefit to taking ketones when there's an autoimmune condition? And so this is a really great question, because we know when there's an autoimmune condition, most people will hear we don't know what the cause is and there's not really a cure, and that's true. Once you develop an autoimmune condition, we can't cure it, but you absolutely can manage it. And what we do know is that there are events preceding the development of a autoimmune condition, so very stressful events. Very stressful events can absolutely contribute to an autoimmune condition. But what we also know is that there are underlying factors, specifically mitochondrial dysfunction, and the other is low BDNF. And so I'll start first with the mitochondrial dysfunction. So the mitochondria is essentially the generator of our cells. That's where our cells create energy. And as we age, or if we're stressed, environmental toxins, all of those things can negatively impact the mitochondria, cause the mitochondria to slow down. We lose mitochondria, we don't regenerate it as quickly. And what we found is beta hydroxybutyrate actually improves mitochondrial function. Intermittent fasting will also improve mitochondrial function. And Mytoplex, this is actually a great time to talk about Mytoplex, will also impact mitochondrial function. So the electrolytes that we have in Mytoplex, it's not just, the formulation in Mytoplex, it's not just electrolytes. We also have in here phosphatidylcholine, creatine, we have the CMED as well, and we have P2Q, the MitoP2Q. And so, yes, with taking the Mytoplex, we will replenish the electrolytes, but all of those additional ingredients are very powerful antioxidants that provide fuel for the brain, but they also provide fuel for the mitochondria. So beta hydroxybutyrate, intermittent fasting, and Mytoplex together can improve mitochondrial function, which we see underlying many autoimmune conditions. We also see mitochondrial dysfunction underlying aging. And there's a theory that it's that decline in mitochondria that actually contributes to aging, chronic disease, degeneration as we age. So it's very important that we maintain the health and the function of our mitochondria and encourage the production of new healthy mitochondria as we age, not only if we suffer from autoimmune conditions. And then the second thing with autoimmune is BDNF. I like to talk a lot about brain function. So BDNF, again, is a protein in the brain, or it's a protein that's responsible for creating new neuronal pathways in the brain. And we see low levels of BDNF in cognitive decline, and we see low levels of BDNF in autoimmune conditions. So again, we have found that beta hydroxybutyrate and fasting can actually upregulate the production of BDNF. So both of those things are underlying autoimmune, so there absolutely could be potential benefit for you by consuming pure therapeutic ketones and consuming Mytoplex, and then engaging in intermittent fasting, even if you're not engaging in a ketogenic diet. So the next question I'm getting a few questions about ketones and consumption, how to drink them, can you have too many ketones? So I get this question a lot, actually. So how many times a day should I consume ketones? And can I consume too many of them? And so I'll start with the first one, the second. Can you consume too many ketones? The answer is no. You'd have to drink about 60 packs at one time to get enough of a blood level of ketones where it would actually be concerning. And again, ketones are actually water soluble. So again, if you have too much in your body, or your body doesn't need it, your body will just release them in your urine and eliminate them. So we're not going to store them the way we would fats. Your body doesn't store ketones, so we just eliminate them. So no, you can't consume too much of the exogenous ketones. And then the next question was, how many times a day should you be consuming your exogenous ketones? So I like to have my patients and personally consume ketones twice a day. So usually I want my patients starting their day with their exogenous ketones in the morning. I have most of my patients fasting. So I ask them in that morning window where they're engaging in that intermittent fast to consume those ketones. And then after that, go about your day, and then usually mid-afternoon where they're seeing sort of a dip in energy, or right before a workout, 30 to 45 minutes before a workout, I'll have them take their second serving. I like people to take it twice a day so that you get a consistent level of blood ketones. They're only going to stay in your system anywhere 3 to 6 hours, just depending on how quickly your body uses them. So if we want to get the benefit of ketones throughout the day, it would serve us better to drink the exogenous ketones more than once a day. So for those who are new, starting with once a day is great. I always say that you'll figure out what works best for you. So start once a day in the morning and then play around with it, but 2 is ideal. And so that's sort of where I lead my patients to. Ideally, I'd like them to take it twice a day. And if I'm engaging in, if there's some kind of therapeutic outcome I'm looking for, sometimes I have patients taking it 3 times a day. So I might increase it a little bit more from there as well. So a question about caffeine. So lots of questions. I'm getting some questions about the caffeine content and what if you're caffeine sensitive. So the caffeine content is similar to that found in a cup of coffee. But for those who are caffeine sensitive, then absolutely you should take the caffeine-free version. So we have a caffeinated, we have a decaffeinated version. So absolutely just take the version that doesn't contain caffeine in it if you do have a caffeine sensitivity. Overall, caffeine is not bad for you. The only time I ask people not to consume caffeine is, again, if there's a sensitivity of some kind or if they're suffering from adrenal fatigue. And then it's just a little bit too much stimulation for those adrenal glands. So then I'm asking people to sort of take the caffeine-free version. So can it help with gallstones? So I always like to say when it comes to medical conditions, so ketones absolutely won't cure any medical condition that you have. And if you do have any medical condition, then you do have to speak to your healthcare provider just to make sure it's safe and that it's right for you. When it comes to gallstones, no, ketones will not cure your gallstones. And the interesting thing is there are the 2 concerns I get with ketone or with the ketogenic diet, or the primary questions I get are, will it cause gallstones or kidney stones? And what we have found is there is a bit of a link with the ketogenic diet and the development of gallstones, but that's usually due to a mineral imbalance. So most of us are already lacking some of those essential minerals, and we know that the ketogenic diet and exogenous ketones can act as a bit of a diuretic. That's why it's so important to make sure that you're getting your electrolytes in and your fluids in. And so usually when people develop symptoms after they have started the ketogenic diet, they're symptoms of that mineral loss. So some people might feel a headache sometimes, and usually it's just a sign that you need to replenish some of those electrolytes. And what I always say is it's showing me what your deficiencies are. So most people are deficient in magnesium, for example, already, and then if you lose a little bit more, that's where you start to develop some of those symptoms. So you just have to replenish some of those key essential minerals, and that usually negates that potential impact. So the next question I was getting is on ulcerative colitis. So we'll talk a little bit about inflammatory bowel disease. So I get a lot of questions about that as well. And actually, I'm just going to answer the headache question first because I just mentioned that briefly a minute ago. So if you're experiencing headaches, it's most likely due to that loss of electrolytes. So add in your electrolytes, add in your Mytoplex. Just pour your Mytoplex right into your ketones while you drink it. And that should help with any of the headaches you might experience or any sort of digestive upset or constipation that you might be experiencing as well. So in terms of ulcerative colitis and inflammatory bowel conditions, there's some really great research right now looking at the role of beta-hydroxybutyrate in inflammatory bowel disease. And what they have found is that BHB actually can encourage the production of healthy gut bacteria, which is absolutely essential in inflammatory bowel disease. And what we've also found in Mytoplex is that the phosphatidylcholine, which is a phospholipid and it's essential in the membrane of all of our cells, it's also essential in linear gut mucosa. So those of us who are deficient in phosphatidylcholine, they often see that correlated with those who are suffering from UC or inflammatory bowel disease. So there could be benefit for you in ingesting the exogenous ketones, also that inflammatory component, as well as adding in your Mytoplex and getting in that phosphatidylcholine to try and heal the gut lining and heal the mucosa that is lacking the phosphatidylcholine in those who are suffering from inflammatory bowel disease. So gallbladder, can you follow a ketogenic diet or can you take ketones if you don't have a gallbladder? So we get this question a fair bit because those who don't have a gallbladder are told to follow a low-fat diet. So the first thing is that those who are following a low-fat diet, or really any diet for that matter, as soon as the gallbladder comes out, I'm asking them to take a digestive enzyme with ox bile. And that's going to help your body to digest and to break down fats. And because really after your gallbladder is out, most people are struggling to do that. So right off the bat, I'm asking people to take that ox bile to help with fat breakdown and fat digestion. And then the second thing when it comes to the gallbladder is that pure therapeutic ketones will not interact at all with the gallbladder, so you can absolutely ingest ketones. You do have to work with your healthcare provider, make sure that they've said that that's safe for you, but you shouldn't have a problem. Ingesting the exogenous ketones if you don't have a gallbladder. Can you get stomach cramps when incorporating Mytoplex? Not usually, no, it doesn't. That's not generally one of the side effects of taking the Mytoplex, but people can be sensitive to absolutely anything. So if that's the case for somebody, then I encourage them, same thing with the ketones, in the beginning to start with a lower amount, a lower serving. Maybe just take a quarter of a pack and then slowly work up to the full pack. And those are sort of and slowly work up to, but again, if somebody has a sensitivity to something that they can't take, there's not much you can do about that, but no, Mytoplex shouldn't cause stomach cramping overall. And yes, there is AC11 in Mytoplex as well. That's the CMed. So why do people say that the keto diet is not safe? The concern is usually about diabetic ketoacidosis, so there's a bit of a misunderstanding about what the ketogenic diet does and how our body regulates our ketone levels. For diabetics, especially type 1 diabetics, there's absolutely a concern of diabetic ketoacidosis, which is really, really high levels of blood ketones. That can only happen in the absence of insulin. So type 1 diabetics are not making insulin. And we need insulin to obviously manage blood sugar levels and blood ketone levels. So there's sort of a feedback loop. If we have insulin, it is physiologically impossible to go into diabetic ketoacidosis. It's not possible to do that, but that's why people often have concern. Their fear is that diabetic ketoacidosis, but again, it's not going to happen if you have insulin present. So for those who are diabetic, who are wanting to take exogenous ketones or follow a ketogenic diet, those individuals really do need to be cautious and to be aware. And I always say they need to be controlled diabetics. You have to be taking your insulin, take your medication regularly, and then working with somebody who can help guide you effectively and properly. So working with your healthcare provider and monitoring your blood ketone and blood glucose levels diligently to make sure that you're not taking more than, or that really, so that you're not going to experience a diabetic ketoacidosis. We do get a lot of people who are concerned about liver and kidney health, but again, we've not seen any evidence that shows that the ketogenic diet is detrimental to the health of the kidney or the liver. What can you do to stop diarrhea? I'm going to assume that's diarrhea with respect to ingesting exogenous ketones or a ketogenic diet. I'm assuming that that's what that is. So again, usually that's just a matter of adjusting. So if that's the case, you reduce your dose or your serving, start with maybe a quarter of a serving and then slowly work up. That does usually go away. And that side effect does usually go away. And some people have reported when they take the keto nat version that it doesn't disrupt their gut in the same way. So if you were taking keto max, then try the keto nat instead. And see if that helps a little bit with your gut. And then for people who have the opposite problem, who are getting constipation, for example, then again, that's a sign you need some more electrolytes and probably need some more magnesium. So people say the ketogenic diet is hard on the liver. Again, you have to ask them where they're getting their evidence or their research from. There's no evidence to show it's detrimental to the health of the liver. There's some evidence that actually shows it could support the health and function of the liver. So again, you have to, when people make claims like that, you have to ask them where they're getting those statements from, where they're getting that research from. And again, with exogenous ketones, we've really not seen, any evidence of that. So pre-workout, what would I recommend pre-workout? So usually for a workout, I'd recommend taking your ketones probably 30 to 45 minutes before your workout. For those who work out in the morning, for those who like to work out in the morning, I will often have them, if you can do a fasted workout, so I'll often have those individuals complete a fasted workout. If you want to take your ketones prior to that workout, then that's great, again, 30 to 45 minutes. And then I'll have them do their Keto Kreme after their workout. if they haven't quite finished that fasting window yet. So Keto Kreme after, and then continue with that fasting window before breaking your fast and moving on to your first meal that day. So I'm getting more digestion questions as well. So just rewind a little bit. And we'll see here, I touch a few times on digestion. Some questions on Keto Kreme. No, Keto Kreme does not contain ketones. And I do get the question a lot, how do you take Keto Kreme and your exogenous ketones? So again, if you're working out, often I recommend, as I just said, the ketones before your workout and then your Keto Kreme after your workout. Otherwise, if you're just moving into a workday, you can absolutely take Keto Kreme and ketones at the same time. There's no issue with that, so you can definitely take them at the same time. I usually have, I'll tell my patients, or what I usually do is to have that sort of Keto Kreme or that buttered coffee in the morning, and then about an hour later, I'll have my ketones at work. So can a diabetic do the reboot? That's a great question. And I would only recommend a diabetic do that if they're working with their healthcare provider, because if they're on medication, they absolutely will become hypoglycemic. And so they do need to be monitored, they need to be careful, they'll need to modify their medication as they go, so they need to be working with their healthcare provider to make sure that they can make those changes so they don't become hypoglycemic while they're fasting. So again, yes, they can do it, but they do really need to work with their healthcare provider. So the T's didn't agree with you. Can I substitute Max for that? So it depends on the goal that you're looking for. So if you're just looking for the benefit of ketones overall, absolutely, then you can take Max or Nat and just get your ketones through another source, and that's not a problem at all. If you were looking for some of those calming benefits, again with the T's, we've got some 5-HTP and things like that, so you won't be able to replace those in another ketone product. But if you're looking for just the exogenous ketones, absolutely, you can take a Max or a Nat, and then again, I would recommend just the caffeine-free version. So for best results, should we consume on an empty stomach and then fast during the times, and then fast as well? So yes, I usually encourage taking ketones in an empty stomach. You do not have to, but I do usually encourage taking ketones first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. That's how I encourage my patients to do it. That's how I do it, but it doesn't mean you can't take it with a meal. You can't have them with a meal. I do usually recommend taking them with a meal that's sort of higher fat. But no, you don't have to take it on an empty stomach, but that's usually how I encourage individuals to do it, and I have them do it in the fasting window. So I don't make individuals wait until their fasting window is done and then have them. You can absolutely consume them within that fasting window. I think I am out of time for today, everybody. I hope that I have answered all of your questions. I know that there were a few that I didn't get to. Hopefully I answered as many as I could. Please feel free, write your questions down. I'll go through and answer what I can afterwards. I know that we have Keto Academy coming up at the end of May, so I hope to see you guys all there. Please feel free to come by and say hello, share your stories, ask questions. That's always my favorite part of our events, a favorite part of my Prove It community. So please feel free to come by and say hi. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and see you soon.